You're listening to the Ben Fordham Podcast. And now, Ben Fordham comments.
Well, we've had a win over the summer break. James Willis covered this development when the news came through, but considering the amount of time we've dedicated to it, we think it's worth repeating. And I'll talk to the Premier about it tomorrow when Chris Minns is live in studio. Mount Warning, one of the most picturesque climbing spots in Australia, will reopen its tracks. And it follows a campaign that's lasted a few years here on 2GB Breakfast. People will be allowed to climb Mount Warning again from July next year, which is great news. The trail, located in the New South Wales Northern Rivers, has been off limits since 2020. And once upon a time, more than 100,000 people a year travelled to the area and they pumped cash into the local economy. But then someone decided to close the track. Before 2020, Mount Warning was bustling with activity, but that changed when the Wallumbin Consultative Group gained control. At first, the community was told that women would be banned from climbing Mount Warning. No women, men only. When local Indigenous women vowed to fight the sexist ban, it was extended to men too. So no one was allowed to climb Mount Warning. It made no sense. Originally, National Parks and Wildlife shut Mount Warning temporarily, but that temporary closure turned into a 5-year battle to have it reopened. The consultative group claimed the area had physical and spiritual importance, but other Indigenous leaders and community members described the claims as garbage. Local elder Elizabeth Davis Boyd went on the record and said, "This is not correct and it's doing great damage." The late Indigenous elder Marlene Boyd, known as the custodian of Mount Warning, also pushed back, saying, "How can the public experience the spiritual significance of this land if they can't climb to the summit and witness creation?" In 2024, we caught up with a bloke named Sean Davies. Now, Sean's an Indigenous historian and a local bloke who spoke up on behalf of many local Indigenous families, telling 2GB Breakfast there's no justification for closing Mount Warning.
Our families feel very excluded from the conversation in that for years we've had a good relationship previously with national parks and talked about the glory of the mountain and other families, and all of that has been more or less taken. And that's not something we agree with.
That was Sean Davies, an Indigenous man who's been pushing for Mount Warning to be reopened. And we want to thank others who were part of the campaign. Climber Mark Hendricks has been one of the leading advocates pushing for this, and the New South Wales Upper House MP John Ruddock has been keeping up the pressure in Parliament. We didn't have a lot of luck trying to convince the Environment Minister in New South Wales, Penny Sharp. She was always vowing to look into it and consult with the community. But we sensed the gears changed after a conversation we had with the Premier Chris Minns last year. We asked the Premier, when a minority wanted concerts to stop at Allianz Stadium, you ignored them and increased the number of concerts every year. When a minority wanted the Ultimate Fighting Championships, UFC, banned, you ignored them and did a deal to bring more bouts to Sydney. So why are you caving to a minority who want Mount Warning closed while ignoring the majority who want it open?
I don't dismiss what they're saying. I mean, they live in that community.
Would you mind having a close look at this one for us?
Of course.
Because I'm just not convinced that anything's happened on it. That was April last year. The Premier assured us he would look at the closure, and fast forward to 2026, we're pleased to hear that Mount Warning will reopen in July next year. It'll be closed for a little while longer to get the climbing track back to good condition, but the main thing is it will reopen. And funnily enough, we kicked off our campaign to reopen the track on our first show back in 2024. And finally, after 2 years of pressure, the New South Wales government has listened to the silent majority. And nobody should have the right to close down a mountain. And sadly, in recent years, we've seen other special parts of Australia declared off limits. And it's not just New South Wales, it's happened in parts of Victoria and WA too. We need to be open for business.